Understand, as a rideshare driver, whether driving for Uber or Lyft, the fact that the companies require all drivers to drive unarmed shows they are not working in your best interest, and it could mean your safety. What up, folks? Once again, it is indeed your boy Tim with another ride sharing video. Now, this is going to be a follow-up to a story we talked about in Omaha, Nebraska, where a driver picked someone up and a passenger stabbed him about the neck and chest. Now, this story states, Uber driver injured in knife attack asks for more driver safety precautions. Now, that should be familiar to many of us, particularly with stories like this we've covered where drivers have faced an awful ending, and those who survive were starting to hold Uber and Lyft accountable for these nefarious individuals they're putting in their cars. Many of these folks already have lengthy criminal histories, and some are even actively wanted by the law at the time they commit the crime. In this case, the individual here, Mr. Tipton, which is the name of the driver, the passenger he picked up actually had two active warrants for his arrest. So he picked up somebody that, if the rideshare companies had required any kind of background check like they do on us drivers, they would have known this passenger was a bad person to pick up and put in a damn car. But listen to this story, and this is where you will actually hear the fucking bullshit, because it should piss you off how often drivers are saying this. But listen to this. What Mr. Tipton went through is absolutely terrifying, and our thoughts are with him as he recovers from this senseless attack. As soon as this incident was reported to us, we banned the rider from the platform. Who gives a fuck? He's already committed the crime. Could have cost this driver's life. The driver was stabbed twice in the chest and once in the neck. So the passenger was clearly trying to kill him. And then the passenger ran into a dollar store and then started taking the clerk and the employees hostage as well. But when you hear the follow-up from Uber, this is what angers folks. When I say these companies don't give a damn about you, and the idea that they would even begin to ask us to be out here unarmed should piss you off, because this story we're covering here has happened to dozens and dozens of drivers, where they give this little bullshit follow-up with basically nothing to help the driver out. And the way this one closes, it should come to no surprise that it's going to end that same way. I want you to listen to how Uber responds, or how the article ends. Now, after going through all of this shit, the driver is asking that Uber begin, taking precautions or doing something to help us out so that we're not picking up felons and getting fucked up. Like I said, a very common request. But listen to this. Tipton said he's likely facing thousands in medical bills, and his insurance won't cover it all. He wants Uber to help pay those bills. Uber did not say whether they will. Now, we know why Uber didn't respond. They ain't gonna give him a fucking dime. He's not gonna get any money from Uber. Lyft wouldn't help pay if something happened to you either. This is why the suggestion that you get behind the wheel and usher passengers from point A to point B unarmed makes no sense, because you heard in the earlier part of the story where they suggest, he's in our thoughts. Kind of like what you hear after a school shooting or something. You can't do shit with thoughts when you're dealing with a potential life-altering event. Getting stabbed about the neck and chest, this guy could be dealing with these wounds for the rest of his life. Who gives a shit if you got thoughts or you're offering prayers? How about offering payments to some of the fucking medical bills? So the idea that they're saying, he'll be in his thoughts is meaningless. Now, you hear how the story ends with Uber stating that you hear the author of the story stating that Uber did not get back with them when they asked, well, are you going to help this person pay any of the bills? Of course they didn't get back, because if they get back and admit they ain't going to do shit, it looks very insensitive. So to give Uber plausible deniability, they just don't respond. That way, the reporter can't state that they didn't help the person out. And we know the story makes headlines for one news cycle and it disappears. So you'll never hear anything about this driver again from the media. And of course, Uber won't help him out at all. Once he gets well, if he wants to continue driving, maybe have to show Uber some type of medical report that says he's able to drive. Otherwise, they'll ban him from the fucking app as well. This is a lose-lose for the driver. But yeah, the idea that his health insurance won't cover the medical bills, which, by the way, Uber's insurance, we have this $2,500 deductible insurance through Uber that's total bullshit to begin with. If you're injured while ushering a passenger, particularly by the fucking passenger themselves, Uber should cover that. That's what their insurance should step in for. If something happens to a driver because he went and picked up somebody that they told us to go pick up, that they didn't do any background check on at all, their insurance should cover some shit like that. No, he's not going to get a dime from Uber, not going to get a card, not going to get any flowers. Nothing's going to come to his hospital room while he's recovering from these injuries. He's not going to get shit. My guess is the message you see in the story where Uber says that he'll be in their thoughts, that's probably the only sentiment this driver's ever going to get from Uber. So I cannot stress it any stronger than I do in any of my other videos. If you're driving for Uber or Lyft and you're not carrying some type of defensive tool or weapon on you, you're taking a risk. Now, I will state in this case, normally if you're driving and somebody starts stabbing you from behind like that, there's not a lot you can do even if you are armed. But in this case, this driver, according to the story, the passenger tried to demand the driver take him somewhere else other than what was the original trip destination. The driver told him, you got to make changes in the app. I just can't take you somewhere that's not on the app. We've all had to do that, and some passengers don't like it. So when the passenger did not like the driver saying, you got to change your destination in the app, this is when the passenger started demanding the key fob from the driver. According to the driver, he didn't know the passenger even had a knife at that time. He got out of the car resisting the passenger's request, and the fight happened on the outside of the vehicle. This is what the victim has stated. So if this is correct, if that victim was armed, he could have got to work and potentially saved himself from injury. So once again, carry some type of defensive tool on you every passenger, every trip, every single damn time. Mace, something to slice or poke with, and if you're comfortable, a damn gun, period. Because this here was a life-threatening event. This driver stated he didn't know he had even been stabbed until the authorities arrived. And that's at that point, because he stated in the article that his adrenaline was flowing so much, he didn't realize while tussling with the passenger was actually stabbing him. And he started noticing he was bleeding. So, yeah, I'm just going to say it, screaming from the heavens, don't drive unarmed. You can't do shit with Uber's thoughts and fucking prayers. And regardless, I don't care if you're religious or not, a driver can't do shit with a thought or a prayer when he's dealing with something like this. And we know insurance, you got deductibles, you got co-pays, you got out-of-pocket costs, even if you got the best insurance. Some shit like this is going to cost that driver money that he likely does not have, time that he's not going to be behind the wheel earning an income, and at the end of the day, Uber is not going to do shit. So it's a lot to be frustrated about because it keeps happening. But let your boy know in the comments, because I'm going to tell you, with all of these stories I've covered, I have yet to hear of one single case where a driver was injured by a passenger and Uber did something, and I'm putting in parentheses something, for the driver, because it's usually nothing. I have never heard of a single driver state that after being injured by a passenger or something happening while driving for rideshare, Uber did anything other than that same bullshit tagline, we immediately banned your assailant from the app. That's useless. You're laying up in intensive care somewhere bleeding out. Who gives a fuck that you banned him now? That is meaningless. But let me know in the comments, have you ever heard of Uber stepping in and helping a driver that was victimized by his passenger? If not, that should be your clue to stay strapped up anytime you drive. It's your boy Tim, as always. Subscribe to the damn channel, and I'll see you in the next video.